sababu ni mambo mazuri. Tukitoka hapa tutaenda tukiiba kawibo kazuri kakusema kwamba mambo ni mazuri.
We are going to implement our manifesto to the letter, because hatukuenda kwa wananchi kwenda kuwadanganya. Tulienda kuwaambia tutafanya program ya kuzalisha chakula, tutafanya program ya universal health coverage, tutafanya program ya housing, kupanga ajira ya vijana, tutafanya program ya digital super highway, tutafanya ile program ambayo itahakikisha kwamba wananchi wako na afya. And that is what we are doing.
Tuliingia tukakuta wakati mgumu. I know raia wamekuwa a little bit impatient because of the economic challenges, but I want to confirm to you that the president has put in hard work for the last 1.5 years, and he has kept us on our toes.
We have a mission because we have the privilege and the honor to be leaders in Kenya today.
There will never be a better government than the government that we have today.
Kuna kiongozi anachaguliwa kwa bahati mbaya. Every leader is elected kwa sababu Mungu amependa hivyo. Rigiji and myself tukifika hapo mbele na tumepangana, tumekubaliana vile itaenda, we must also agree that going forward, if a man is a candidate for president in our party, the woman must be the runner.
Tangu katiba hii ya Kenya izinduliwe mwaka wa 2022 tumepata magavana 7, Your Excellency.
Jameni, safari hii tuungane sote, kina mama pamoja na wanaume, kubadilisha sheria yetu ndio kina mama wapate nafasi yao ya uongozi.
When we talk of inclusion, let inclusion be in terms of principles, values, attitudes, resource sharing.
Niko tayari kufanya kazi na viongozi wote waliochaguliwa, kwa sababu mimi naamini hakuna kiongozi anachaguliwa kwa bahati mbaya. Kila kiongozi anachaguliwa kwa mapenzi ya Mungu.
Your Excellency, Linda Mama program tafadhali iendelee.
Sasa ile sheria tumeleta mpya, bima ya afya mpya, hailindi mama peke yake, inalinda mama, inalinda mwanafunzi wa shule, inalinda mzee wa nyumba na inalinda jamii yote.
Kio Bomas tulisema tunasimamisha maandamano. Wenzetu wa Kenya Kwanza tuje tuzungumuze pamoja. Na hiyo ndio sababu tulisema mambo ya kupigana tuache, tuje through dialogue we resolve our issues. Lakini wenzetu wa Kenya Kwanza walikubali mambo mengine. Ofisi ya Prime Cabinet Secretary, ofisi ya Leader of Opposition, ofisi za kina mama na zingine. Lakini swala la gharama ya maisha walikataa. Nasi tukasema that is where we part ways.
Na Robert wamepitisha kwa National Assembly na Senate wamepitisha, ile mebaki ni the bills anchoring this conclusion. Na hakuna jambo la kucheza. Wakijaribu kuharibu tena, wananchi wa Kenya wako na uhuru chini ya katiba.
Issues contained in this document are not azimio or Kenya Kwanza issues. These are Kenyan issues. They are our aspirations as the people of Kenya. Those issues should unite, not divide us.
I am happy that the outstanding issue of 2/3 gender, finally, both sides have agreed on a way forward. I hope in honor of all our girls, our daughters, our wives, our mothers, and all the women of Kenya, we will be able to do this for us as a country.
I had estimated the residents of the Kenyan people to look for peace and tranquility, and I have since been very impressed by what has happened, and I think this is the way to go. Kenya is bigger than all of us, and going forward, after the two houses have done justice to the report, we believe that we'll have peace forever.
And if you have to do public participation of the bills, consequent bills upon the report, which has happily been adopted, we want to suggest that we do not take all the time. So fast tracking it and then getting the final product. We all know, for example, we do not have an IBC.
Welcome back, and that's the soapbox there, just giving you, as always, the feel and flavor of the politics and the tone and tenor of how it is right now in the country. Biggest question as well is the National Dialogue Report and its requirements inside there. 8 bills that should be steamrolled within the National Assembly. One big one is the IBC bill, amendment bill, that is right now pinched for time. And we're facing a constitutional crisis. But by the way, look at that editorial cartoon as well. You can see the man who's been jumping the hurdles is none other than Ezra Chiloba, right? There, IBC has been one of the hurdles. Also, Communications Authority has been another. Right now, he's been appointed as the Consul General, Los Angeles. Will this also hurdle go down? Everyone is asking as well. And him being recalled, that is the biggest question. But the question has been raised regarding some of his appointment, looking at what we also have on the front page of the East African as well. Why Maduki has to go. President Ruto nominated the EAC Secretary General to an ambassadorial post in Moscow at a time regional MPs kicked off a vicious campaign in Nairobi to have him sacked on graft allegations. And mark you, also the president has been top-heavy with the gender question on this appointment as well. Recently, him making that comment that moving forward, maybe, just maybe, right, a running mate will be required to be a female counterpart. We shall be looking at that as well. Holding court this morning with Senior Counsel Dr. Utena Molo, who's a member of Parliament, Rarieda. Also, we are holding court with Senior Counsel Okongo Mogeni, who is a senator for Nyamira. We have also Deputy Majority Leader of the National Assembly. This is Owen Bayer. And also, we're joined by nominated Senator Tabitha Mutindra as well. So before we took a short break, we have to circle back with you, yes, Majority Leader. You can tell us more on the question that has been raised on the counties as well. We have a lot of issues to discuss, even moving forward with the gender question and the IBC. A lot also on your plate as far as the National Assembly is concerned.
Okay. Thank you very much, Debal. And just a quick one on counties. I think what we have in counties is a situation of management abilities of different governors. Looking at the revenue collections and the revenue dips that we have, it's been a tough task for actually county governors and counties actually to actualize their own revenue targets. And they depend so much on the national government, such that although, yes, it is in law that counties must receive money from national government, but I think counties need to look at a time frame and say, we will win off this idea of that we must always receive money from national government and collect their own money, revenue. There's a lot of revenue that is not collected in the counties, and there also is a lot of revenue leakage in the counties, where people are expected to collect revenue. Others open their own accounts, you know, and collect revenue, and that revenue might not even be banked. People go to the markets. You know, these revenue officers go to the markets and they have some funny receipts and they collect money, put in their pocket, while the county is not realizing its targets because of the corruption that goes in within collection of revenue. So, Dibal, we have a work to do, and I just wished governors would sit down and start talking about own revenue more than looking at what the national government is giving. Because the Constitution has given them a mandate and opportunity to collect money, you know. But what they do is they only want to manage the money that is coming from the national government only. But they're not looking at what is it that they can collect. A county like Nairobi should not even be waiting for money from the national government. There's a lot of revenue in this county called Nairobi. There are a lot of resources that if a governor had a good team in terms of revenue, actually they would collect enough money, use it, and even at a time when national government does not have money, they would loan national government. That is Nairobi. The money here is a lot. They should have a balanced budget actually, counties like Mombasa, counties like Nakuru, the revenue sources that are available for them to collect money is huge. But when you look at how are governors structuring revenue collection, I want to take you back to the time when we had local authorities, County Council of Nairobi, County Council, the City Council of Nairobi, and the other local authorities. You'll be surprised about they used to collect more money, those local authorities, than what counties are collecting. They used to pay their salaries on time without having to look back and ask the then Minister of Local Government to give them money. They used to have development projects. Actually, if you went into this, you find a lot of nursery schools were built by councils. A lot of schools, classrooms were built by councils. They actually had their own clinics, and they were being funded by the councils then. Money was there because the mayor and the town clerk then and the county councils then the councillors then would focus on, we must operate and we must get money, and where will the money come from? It will come from local revenue, because national government was giving only a small percentage of the money. But then when things changed and then there's county government, governors stopped looking at own revenue as part of the money that they would use to finance their bills and finance development. They only look at national government. But I think going forward, a governor should now be looking at, before I cry and say, the national government has not given me my money, what is it that I'm doing to collect local revenue? From cess, from rates, from services, from licenses. All that money can be available to counties, enough even to surpass what national government is giving. But governors don't want to look at that. They don't want to be responsible when it comes to collection. But they will cry and make a lot of noise when national government delays even for one day to give them revenue. So that is something that we need to explore, and that is something that governors need to start thinking about on source revenue. I know there are certain counties that may not be viable, may not have a lot of resources out there. But you see, there are certain counties that should not be depending on the national government for resources. They should be able to collect enough resources. Again, I had you talk about the many accounts that are available, that counties are opening, that there was a county that has over 35. There's no law that prohibits counties from opening accounts to bank their money. But then, the more accounts you have, the less ability to oversight those accounts comes in. And some of these accounts are opened even without authority from the treasury, the county treasury. You know, you have a small department, they say they want to open an account, and they stash money there and eventually withdraw it and use it. Counties now are coming up with municipalities, which is a good idea. I think my county of Kilifi now is having like 5 municipalities. And these municipalities is actually a way of taking devolution even to a lower level and to manage the cities. Because a lot of these cities which were growing then, were thriving then, collapsed under the advent of devolution.
Under which legal framework are we having these municipalities?
No, there is a legal framework, there is a law. And the urban cities and wherever there is a law that actually, and for you to, before you declare a municipality, I think there's a process. There's a process that includes Senate, that a Senate has to agree to giving a status, and then there is a gazettement, and therefore it is declared as a municipality. So if you go to Kilifi today, we have the Malindi municipality, we have Kilifi municipality, we have Watamu municipality, we have Mariakani municipality. These are new municipalities. They can be dangerous. Huh?
That's a rich county.
Yes, they can be dangerous in terms of resources. If you don't have people who can really manage the resources there, resources can be wasted. But if you have good managers and good governance within the municipalities, actually municipalities can expand revenue collection, and then they can bring services like street lights, like water, like managing local hospitals, managing cleanliness of counties, of cities or towns and all that. It can be a very, very good thing. Very, very good thing. But again, if they're not managed properly, you have a wage ballooning, because municipalities now are employing themselves as entities. You know, if you're a municipality, you have powers to start employing without reference to the county government. You have on-source revenue. You can even do tenders yourself. Because it is an entity. It is established as an entity of governance to govern a town or an area that has been gazetted as a town. And those municipalities can be very good, and they can actually bring glory to some of the towns that had lost glory because of what devolution had done. And they can even bring their own investors to invest in those. And municipalities are good, and they can change. Nairobi here, I would ask the governor of Nairobi to subdivide this city into several boroughs or municipalities.
I think that is in the offing, yes.
So that we can manage the towns and control development and all that, so that we become better. So there are many other things that governors can do to collect revenue and stop relying 100% on national government revenue, and we bring glory to these counties.
All right, I just want us to turn the crack a bit now. We discussed about IBC. I think we've done a good stock on also the counties, unless there's anything that you wanted to add, Otena Molo, on this. And by the way, I can see...
That's very impressive, Cliffy.
Yes,
you know, most counties don't have those number of municipalities.
No, we have
Cliffy has 5 4.
Yes.
But as much as they still have 5, the on-source revenue collection is still...
It's poor, so even if you expand, you cannot really run these municipalities at the end of the day. So the issue is not really the expansion, it's the running efficiency of this particular municipalities that you raise. I think we're done and dusted on that. Yes. We're done and dusted on the municipalities as well, unless now it will be a devolution conference that will be happening this I want us just to look. By the way, just a 4-on-1 that we have Henry Ariel. He has resigned. Oh yeah. So what does that really portend for what we actually? Because everyone was really talking about it. So he has resigned as the permanent or the Prime Minister of Haiti.
I think the Haiti situation will leave this regime with a very big egg on their face. Yeah. It keeps getting from bad to worse. And I think they should just own up and say that idea of sending the police is a bad idea. Let them just stay here. Haiti is an international problem, and we have international institutions that should be dealing with that problem. It is because of situations like Haiti that we have an entire UN with the Security Council, with the General Assembly, with many of its organs. It's not a Kenyan problem. Our problem is Samburu, Baringo, banditry, Nairobi, budget, and things like that.
But we should put all the
answers. I'm surprised that senior counsel, who is almost getting an international name out there, would think that local. Because, you see, Haiti is not... we are a community of nations. And as Kenya, we also have a responsibility to neighbors. Of course, we have responsibility to the country, but we also have a responsibility to neighbors as part of the community of nations at international level.
But I know you're also a Chachika. Even Jesus said, go and preach the gospel. Yes. First in Jerusalem,
yes,
then Samaria,
of course, we are
then to the outermost part of the world.
We so have done that. Local. Now we are going to the outermost part of the world.
You are missing my point. My point is simply, what is
Haiti
that? No,
was humanity. We are responsible to humanity.
Just tell us and tell Kenyans. What is that gives Kenya a higher responsibility than the US, for example? Than any other country like France, that requires us to sacrifice much more fundamental. What is that? You see?
If the community of nations requires Kenya to undertake an international assignment, Kenya has been to Sierra Leone, Kenya has been to Somalia, Kenya has been to many other countries in this world because of its ability to, and the oomph of its forces to go out there and do what it can do. And therefore, if we went to Sierra Leone, we went to all these other countries, what would be the problem with the Kenyans going to Haiti to help a country that is in dire needs?
Okay, I think we've discussed that.
So what I want to tell them all, do not berate.
That's the problem.
We don't have a prime minister right now.
You know, Owen is a late comer. So
he has no idea what we said earlier.
So please,
he's taking us back, and he's unable to answer a very simple question. You see, like Somali, you would understand why Kenya took the lead, because there are local reasons. You know, their insecurity in Somalia results in direct insecurity in Kenya. But there's nothing that makes Kenya...
We went to Sierra Leone.
No, we've never sent the police to Sierra Leone anyway.
This is the first time we are
sending this is the first time we are sending the police outside the country.
Yes.
But forget about that. And we've already explained why, if you are to send, you should send the armed forces, not the police.
Yes.
But there's nothing, that there's no strategic interest that Kenya has more than any other country. In fact, more than the other neighboring Caribbean countries. We don't share a common border. We don't even trade that much. It does not result in our insecurity. And the only thing that I keep hearing is that because we are Africans and more people in Haiti are also African. Now, really? Surely, that is not a strategic issue.
You misled the Prime Minister to come and take tea in State House while the guns were taking over.
Now you caused him to be thrown out.
When you look at this issue of
every leader is welcome to State House.
All right, just a moment.
If we don't handle it well, because we can't run away from big Kenyans, we are going to suffer vicarious embarrassment on behalf of the president. Because if you call somebody to the country to come and enter into an MOU who has legitimacy issues back home, who I don't know whether he reached back or he resigned on the way. On the way before even reaching Haiti.
Is it resigned from Puerto Rico? He's still there.
Yeah, so his bag, he's resigned while carrying the bag from Kenya. So that agreement has not even been deposited back in Haiti. It's a shame. And
so the bilateral talks that...
That's what we were saying. So that agreement remains between our president and some individual somewhere. You said he's in Puerto Rico. So it's not an agreement between Kenya and Haiti. So I don't know. I hear in the evening, when they normally go to the big house, State House. Yeah. Some of these things, you should just gather courage and advise His Excellency that this one is letting the country down.
Own up.
He should own up. I mean, there are precedents. Right. Even Americans have recalled their soldiers from Somalia when they realized that it was not tenable. Sending troops to Haiti is not what will deliver him in 2027. I think it's looking bad. As Mheshimiwa Tende says, it's leaving us with an egg in our face. It doesn't serve the interests of our country, doesn't help our international cause. So this is the time. I think reflection time is now for the president to wash his hands.
Let me say something.
Leave
let's not belabor the point.
Alone. We come back and deal with our problems.
Just 1 second, but we need to appreciate the fact that it's Haiti who extended the same request to the Kenyan government because of our troops who are known to be very strong when it comes to their job matter security. But on the other hand, when a minister like this one, prime minister like this, decides to resign under the instructions of a gang leader, then eyebrows need to be raised at this particular time, because at the end of the day, I always keep on saying we have one common denominator, and that is that we are all Kenyans. There's nothing wrong. I mean, in leadership, it doesn't mean at times it's 100% okay, but our intentions are out of the humanitarian brotherhood. But now with what has happened this morning, when he himself decides to take that path, then we just need to look at it a bit deeper and give it a bit more time, my view.
Right, so the situation is going out of hand with the escalation of violence. He's buckled to, the pressure that is being, fostered his way as far as the gang leaders are concerned, because they are the people who are calling for this resignation. And also there was a coup which was in the offing so far. My question, again, finally, just as we're finalizing on this, what will be the outcome if there is no leader right now? I don't know. It's because he was the poster child of at least a modicum of a government in Haiti. We don't know which other person that we can go to in light of if there's a diplomatic call.
I recently was in a debate with a number of people, especially some of the human rights lawyers activists within Haiti, and some observers also from the US and other places. And they seem they seem to have a problem with the continuous interference with Haitian affairs by other nations. And in fact, they say that even the main problem and why even, whether they're Kenyan troops or other troops will not succeed is because it is still seen as interference. And one of the nations that they point at, which is why they cannot even go there directly, is the US. So it appears to me that the Haitian problems will be resolved if there's a more neutral entity that comes in and let the Haitians resolve the problem within themselves. And that would probably be a UN-mandated entity, not just another country, because they have a problem, historical and ongoing, with a number of other countries. And which is why they are not even welcoming the Kenyan troops, because it is not Haiti that requested. This request was made by the US.
Yeah.
And that's why they are in praise of Kenya, offering to send their troops. Haiti did not make that request. Haiti accepted it after, the US made the call, and then we offered, and then the UN Security Council had that general, resolution, and that's why, because for them, they would be willing, especially if you are the prime minister who's just now resigned. You don't have a judiciary, you don't have a legislature, there's no president. So you are basically there. Anything that can come to support you is a good thing. And part of their claim was that all these troops were coming not to help the Haitians, but to help the prime minister who has just resigned, because he was seen as put there by some of these other countries. That has been the problem.
So you land in Haiti, you don't know where to take all these negotiations and the bilateral agreements. There's no parliament.
Can't land because the airport is closed. And there are 4,000 prisoners who have just escaped in the streets.
Well, I appreciate what Senior Counsel has said. But you see, what we are looking at as Haiti is a humanitarian crisis, apart from the fact that there's a regime and there are all these things. Because the gang leaders, when you leave a country to be taken over by gang leaders, I'd rather even an organized military takes over than gang leaders who know no law, they obey no one, and they will do whatever. I watched a small documentary on Haiti, and it is very unfortunate that they just kill indiscriminate. You have a business, it is looted. You have a house, people just come in, gangs just walk in and take everything. It's total anarchy. There is nothing, there's no rule of law within a country. Well, yes, there has been an interference in Haiti, and which is on record. But as from a humanitarian perspective, I think the world needs to look at how to. You saw Senior Counsel, what happened in Rwanda, where every country said, this is. You remember I said this is a Rwandan issue. This is a Rwandan issue. What happened in Rwanda is most likely to happen in Haiti. And as a community of nations, the same thing we talked about France. Nobody wanted France in that country. Nobody wanted any other foreign forces in that country. And Rwandese were left to kill each other the way they did. Fortunately, we have a government there that has stabilized the country. We are going the same way in Haiti. Now that the Prime Minister has resigned, it's a country free for all. And what does that also portend for the world? When now we throw in the towel for gang leaders, what can happen to other countries? We need to be wary about the situation in Haiti as a community of nations. And as a community of nations, we need to come out and say, what can we do to help that country? What is it that can be done? And just like the hummingbird, the story of Wangari Maathai and the hummingbird, when there's a fire and the hummingbird just picks a drop of water, at least it did something. Kenya is like that hummingbird. We want to go out there and do something for that country. Or we allow the death of one human being is important to every human being. And what is happening to Haiti should call the community of nations to relook its strategy on how do we help Haiti, whether it is the Kenyan police officer or it is the Kenyan army or it is whatever country, but somebody needs to go to Haiti and bring semblance of peace within that country.
Right. So now it's we are living up to, or Kenya Police is living up to its billing as utumishi kwa wote.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that one was removed. Kenya Police is no longer utumishi kwa wote.
But lastly,
no, Haiti requires a higher calling than a higher calling. You know, I have friends. I have friends in Haiti. I went to school with some of very brilliant guys from Haiti, and before the earthquake, before the earthquake that devastated that country, and I was very, very worried when the earthquake was there because I had friends. I think lost some of them, and now. From the earthquake, the devastation that came in with the earthquake, now the gang leaders, and now no government. I should be concerned because I have friends there, people I've grown with in class, and brilliant boys, brilliant girls that are out there today suffering because a system has failed. And that system, somebody needs to stand and say, we must put back the system. And I do not know why people would think that Kenya as a country, we can't go there and help Haiti. They think US should do that. When are we going to look at ourselves as a country and as Africans and say, yeah, we can solve African problem? Haiti is just an African country that is there, on the other side. And as Africans, we need to stand. That was the dream of Kwame Nkrumah. That is what Pan-Africanism was about. That we should be able to stand as Africans for an African solution to an African problem. Haiti has a problem that must be solved. Somebody needs to go out there. It is not the United States. It is not France. Africans should go to Haiti and solve the problem.
The fact that a substantial number of Haitians are of African descent does not make it an African country. It's still a Caribbean country.
Of course, but
that's number one.
Yes.
And it's in the Americas.
Yes.
Between Kenya and Haiti, you'll have passed thousands and thousands of kilometers and countries, including the neighboring countries, which for some reason choose not to. Yes. What is this superior knowledge that you'd have in Kenya, which has not been able to be helpful for 13 years? If you look at recent history, you are sending 1,000 Kenyan police, which you are calling troops, and the Kenyan police are not supposed to be troops. The Kenyan police are trained in maintaining law and order within Kenya. Of this 1,000, and I saw it's drawn from like the anti-stock theft unit, general, GSU anti-stock theft unit, some even, protecting strategic government installations. They're not trained to be in a situation like the one in Haiti. In Haiti, as you speak, when you are taking them there, 4,000 people, gangsters, have broken out of jail. Forget about the ones who are already, controlling and threatening the prime minister. Now there are others who had been jailed. They have just come out. 4,000 of them with all those guns. At the time you're sending this 1,000, of about 7,000 policemen within Haiti, about 4,000 had been killed and about 3,000 had resigned. What will 1,000 Kenyan poor policemen do in Haiti that will resolve the situation? When we are objecting, we are not saying that the Haitian situation should not be resolved. What we are saying is that we will not resolve it by sending 1,000 policemen to Haiti. And if you want to know that it will not be resolved, the people encouraging us to do that don't have the courage of letting their citizens stay in Haiti. They don't have the courage of sending anyone. You can praise we can be proud as Kenyans, but we will not cheat ourselves that we have the most superior weapons, either for the police or the armed forces in this world. There are many other countries with much more superior forces. So that if it's a question of taking control, there are others who would actually take control. And the entity that should be at the center of this is the UN itself, not any other country with interests. That's all we are saying. And that's not to say that they did not help. They need help, not just this kind of help.
Right. I think we can rest that current state of play that we have
You're not a Pan-Africanist. You would watch an African die just because he's not from your village.
No, I don't want 1,000 Kenyans to die and come back in body bags.
Yeah, indeed.
Yes.
Indeed. All right, moving on. Yes, I wanted just to pick up so that we can gravitate the discussion now. This was just a sidebar just to, of course, update ourselves with what is happening with the current state of play with Haiti, where we have the Prime Minister who has resigned. But coming back home, we have also a pertinent issue that we need to talk about, the IBC and the National Dialogue Report as it stands right now. Given to understand there is a new bill, I think, in the National Assembly. I don't know if it's come to the floor of the House yet or is being sponsored. It's being sponsored by the Thika Town Member of Parliament. This is Alice Nganga, regarding the boundaries review, that they want that pushed so that we can try and alleviate the situation that we're in right now. Could we just begin from there, especially on the issue of IBC, broadly speaking? And I know also the NADCO report will come to the Senate. Once I don't know at what stage where it is right now in the national.
No, we've already passed it.
We already passed it, and we did the final ceremony of.
I saw that you actually.
You were in State House. They confirm my senior council.
Yes.
Yes.
I
want more Bunge.
It is not. It is not only oil that goes to State House.
Not only oil that goes to State House.
Don't be gun shy of going to State House. Yeah, just say you're in State House.
I'm trying to give a story, and Senator Thabita Matinda doesn't want me to complete.
No, I want you to compliment and say that you are proudly in State House and you met the president. What is wrong with that? It is for all Kenyans. Why is the senior council trying to hide that he was in
who has denied and who wants to hide? So what I was saying is we handed the report to the two principals, to former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, after which we went to State House and also handed the report over to President William Ruto. And I think the two promised that they will rally their troops to have a bipartisan approach to support the enactment of the various legislations, including the proposed constitutional amendment. I think the bill you are mentioning by the good friend of ours from Thika Alice has got nothing to do with an article. I think that's something independent.
It's got nothing to do with, but it's got nothing to addressing the issue of IBC and the boundaries review.
Yeah, but you know, the issue of delimitation of boundaries, many jurisdictions do this every 10 years. If you go to the UK, after every census, you redraw your boundaries because you have to take into account the demographics of population movement. In the US, they do the same. But you know, in Kenya, we really like politicizing things. Now, when you mention that the population demographics may lead to some constituencies being lost, you see people coming up with bills saying there are some constituencies that must be protected, which must continue.
Indeed.
But I think to be fair to Kenyans and to be fair to ourselves as Kenyans, resources are given to serve people, not trees. And now that we even have, and I think I'm seeing it being accepted now, that constituencies will be bases of development, with CDF being entrenched in the Constitution, it makes a very strong case that we should have fair representation, as is envisaged in the Constitution, where the population residing in a constituency should be as much as possible equal in all the constituencies around the country. If you go to countries like US, they are states. You know, you find a whole state as one congressional district. So in the House of Representatives, a whole state sends one person to sit in the House of Representatives. If you go to smaller states like Alaska only has one rep in the House of Representatives. North Dakota, South Dakota, even where Biden comes from, there is only one rep. Why? Because the population residing in those states can only allow them to have one congressional district, which is equivalent to our constituency. But if you go to states like California, you find that they have about, I think California has close to 28 or 27 thereabout, members of congressional districts sitting in the House of Representatives. Meaning, Dibal, that we cannot run away from the issue of population. If you go to Isiolo, the population in Isiolo is 148,000. That would be maybe the population of Rarieda. And what the Constitution is saying is you retain the 290 constituencies, Debal. But after census, every 10 years, that's what the Constitution says, after every 10 years, you go and redraw the boundaries so that if there is a county that has a population shift, you know, people have moved from Nairobi, they have now settled in Kisumu, for example. So the population of Nairobi shrinks, that of Kisumu grows. It means Nairobi can lose the 17 constituencies it has, maybe it drops down to 15, but Kisumu that has gotten more migration and population has grown, gets more constituencies because representation is based on population residing in that particular constituency. That's what the Constitution is speaking to. In the last, I think, delimitation in the US, you had counties like California actually lost. They lost one seat because the population had shrunk. So I don't think there's anything wrong in us embracing that practice, which, as I've said, is practiced in many democratic countries, so that there is equality in representation and there is fairness and equity in resource allocation.
I wanted just to know, first of all, because we thank you for painting that picture for us as far as this is concerned, but critically where we are at, you've presented that particular report to the president. Are we pinched for time? We're in March. The boundaries review are bound to be starting. That's what we need to know as Kenyans.
That's why NADCO proposed that we shift, you know, the Constitution talks of 8 to 12.
I agree.
Now, NADCO says, because of the issues we had, IBC commissioners left office, others were forced to resign. We stayed for almost close to 2 years without IBC in place. So what NADCO proposed is that we shift this higher threshold from 12 years to 15 years. Okay, so that once we have the commissioners in place, they can commence the review, but work with a ceiling of 15 years, between 8 to 15 years, so that there is enough time for them to look at the census report, look at the population in various counties vis-a-vis the constituencies. Then the delimitation can be done, not within an upper limit of 12 years, but an upper limit of 15 years. But what I think the MP for Thika is saying, she's saying no constituency should be lost, even if there is delimitation of boundaries.
Let me comment. Let me comment on this.
Let's hear from Tabitha, then we come to you. Yeah.
I wanted to pick it up from where Senior Counsel has left it and be more specific to the Constitution Article 89, which talks about the delimitation, and that the IBC, the intervals of not less than 8 years and not more than the 12 years, that is within the Constitution. You realize that there's going to be a win and a loss, Debal, and that is where, you know, the push and back is, because an area like a county like Nairobi, where currently we have 17 constituencies, we are bound to benefit with more constituencies because our numbers have increased. We're talking over 5 million population of a county. And the surface area could be smaller, but our numbers are higher. And it further takes us to 89, part 6, which talks about, no, 6, the number of inhabitants of the constituency or ward may be greater or lesser than the population quota of a margin, not more than 40% for cities and 30% for the other areas. So all these things are in place, and we need to adhere to the Constitution. It can't be like when a member of parliament is feeling that his or her constituency is going to be affected in one way or the other, then you want to try and defend it. We need to defend abiding by the Constitution, abiding by the law, because even as the people of Nairobi, we need much more resources from where we sit. The NADCO report did not only touch on the IBC issue, touched on many other issues. The question is, was it just a one political, coverage of things? Because most of the things that had actually been addressed, or where we are coming from, that is after having gone to the streets. One, I appreciate the process took quite a good time, and Kenyans were very patient on this. We saw some of the members in NADCO, case example, Eugene Wamalwa, coming out in the final and wanting to be a populist, creating scenarios of, I don't want allowances. What were you doing there from the beginning? What were you sitting to listen all this time, and then in the end is when you want to abort the ship? He should have come out of it and really shown his integrity in terms of the things that are being discussed on table. I'm not party to them, so I'm jumping off. Why wait until the last process? It's just my concern from where I see it and how we've seen him trying to come out in the last minute. What is key is on the issue of IBC. It's actually the priority because of the timelines. The suggestion by NADCO to give it the duration, to add at least 2 years to make it 8 to 15 years. I mean, it makes sense because we have a parliament that is seated. It's within the timelines. But yes, we are squeezed of time, but we need to accept that we might have more, or we might even have less constituencies. The cost of sustaining all this cost within a parliament is also high, and that factor is very key. As Kenya Kwanza, when we continue focusing on the debt issue, if we are going to reduce constituencies where there is no much need, because we still have the county governments, one Kenyan person is represented by the MCA, by the MP, by the women rep, by the senator, by the governor, and in an area that is not so densely populated, then what is the need for? But areas that have more population need to be given this priority, and that should just be the simple discussion. Even where we are coming from, we used to have, Senior Council used to have less than the 290 constituencies. Then we currently have the 290, which we appreciate. So even if the number will be constant 290, or will be less, or will be more, which we do not encourage for it to be more because the cost is high. We had even suggested, my proposal is we reduce and merge some of these counties, because as we see from where we see, some of them are just looting and wasting some of these resources. They should be combined, like counties like Isiolo can be combined there with the county of Meru, and to reduce some of these wasted resources in place.
Okay. Uchenna Omolo, you want to say something?
I wanted to first clarify. You asked what's the position of the NADCO report. Once it was handed over to the President and the former Prime Minister, and it was actually handed over after it was adopted by both houses of Parliament. In its adoption, the respective speakers committed it to the Justice and Legal Affairs Committees to hold a joint sitting and report back to the assemblies within 45 days. And I sit in the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of the National Assembly. We already met last week as a joint committee of Senate and National Assembly. We are having another meeting tomorrow. And we appreciate that we must finalize and get back to the Assembly. Once we meet, there are a number of decisions that will have to be made. One of the decisions to be made is how to deal with the two-thirds gender issue. The NADCO report gave options, but subsequently the task force came with a specific proposal, which also was handed over to the Prime Minister and I think the President, and now both are before the joint committee. So that decision will have to be made. The second decision to be made is how to treat the parts that require just legislative enactment, and the parts that require a constitutional amendment. On the parts that require constitutional amendment, the decision again will have to be made on whether to separate the parts that require a referendum from the ones that just require passage by the House, or whether, not to separate them. So those are decisions that, to be made as we go along. And they are critical decisions that are very important that will therefore have to be made pretty soon. On the question of delimitation of boundaries, and I completely agree with the recommendation of the NADCO report to extend the time. The only thing, and I was mentioning this to Senator Okongo Mogeni, is as we are moving from 12 to 15 years, we need to be sure that that 15th year does not coincide with the general election, because then we will not have resolved anything. You know, we need a commission to look at this matter at a time we are not also dealing with an election. So that is something we have to look into. And if we go that way, there is no urgency in discussing the proposal by those of our colleagues who want, like what you are saying, assurance that the review must not result in the loss of any constituency, because then that issue is postponed. In any event, if we will have to resolve the real import of, clause 27 of the schedule, or in terms of the interim, the transitional measures, which expressly protects that the Commission shall ensure that the first review undertaken in terms of this constitution shall not result in the loss of a constituency existing on the effective date. And I can tell you, having been in the committee of experts, that it is, you can create things like counties, like constituencies, but creating them is a headache in this country. Yeah. I don't see any time when any constituencies that has been created will be lost. Yes. Especially because all those things then must involve some sort of a referendum. And when it comes to protecting what they have, Kenyans are very good at it, even if it's a location.